Let's get ready to story!
So, this person's name, like I mentioned, is odd. Not so much, I mean, it's a name. It's not like her name is like Bookcase Jaharski or something like that. But it's just that there's not a famous person who's had this name before, yet. Because it's Michaela Moore. So, your name is now Michael Moore. Michael Francis Moore, born April 23rd, 1954. You look beautiful tonight, Michael. Best I've ever seen you look, ever. I saw Michael in me. Is an American filmmaker, surprise, author, surprise, social critic, what? And political activist, I don't believe it. He is the director and producer of Fahrenheit 9/11, which is the highest grossing documentary of all time, and the winner of the Palme d'Or. His films Bowling for Columbine and Sicko also placed in the top 10 highest grossing documentaries, and the former won the Academy Award for Documentary Feature. In September 2008, he released his first free movie of the internet, Slacker Uprising, which documented his personal quest to encourage more Americans to vote in presidential elections. He has also written and starred in the TV shows TV Nation and The Awful Truth. Moore's written and cinematic works criticize globalization, large corporations, assault weapon ownership, U.S. Presidents Bill Clinton, George W. Bush, the Iraq War. You have been a busy young lady. The Iraq War and the American healthcare system and capitalism. And one time she made me teach a 3-year-old kid whose mother was from India and told me, I said, I was teaching a kid a class of 5-year-olds, and she pushed on me this 3-year-old, God bless you. And God bless the 3-year-old, because the mother's like, here, he wants to join the class. I'm like, what's his name? She goes, Humschmid. I'm like, wait, I'm sorry, what was that again? Humschmid. I'm like, Humschmid. All right. And I said, Humschmid, what do you want to do in the class? And he went, and that's what Humschmid did for 5 classes. Michaela Moore, everybody. Sorry for the digression, but I love my Humschmid.
Connor has never taught for me again. Just, you know. And
Hey,
also,
it's true.
Interesting fact, my father's name is not only Michael Moore, but it's Michael Francis Moore, the exact same name as the filmmaker, and he is an avid Republican.
Whoa!
So I was told that I could come up here and say hello before you start the timer, yes? Okay. I don't tell 5-star-minute stories either. Okay, so allow me to tell you a very uplifting story about how I almost died. This is entitled, Never Trust a Fucking Eagle Scout. So it was the summer of 1995 in New York City, and it was hot and sticky and nasty. Going into the subways was like descending into some awful mixture of hell and liquid urine. It was just awful. I was in an un-air-conditioned apartment because I was a student at the time. It was miserable. But my friend Scott, my roommate actually, had been reading, Jeff, you'll love this, On the Road by Jack Kerouac for probably the 180th time, and he had decided we were going to escape the city, we were going to hike, we were going to camp, we were going to hitchhike, it was going to be awesome. So I figured, hey, love an adventure, hate to sweat, love to camp. Plus, I trusted him implicitly because even though Scott was a total airhead sometimes, completely disorganized, and a total romantic, he was also, of course, an Eagle Scout. So he knew about surviving in the wilderness on nothing but bark and humility, right? So I figured, what could possibly go wrong? So off we headed to Port Authority. Yes, we had decided to cross country using a Greyhound bus. For this is how you can get in touch with humanity and possibly get syphilis from the seats. This was grit. This was real. Off we went. Now, there were quite a few things that happened before this horrible story I'm about to tell you that foreshadowed what might happen, that we had sort of impending doom coming. One of them was the fact that our first stop was in Chicago during their worst heat wave in 500 years. It was 102 degrees when we got off the bus at 2 in the morning. Yeah, holy shit. Also, there was the fact that Scott in Nebraska, in the prairies that we had hiked into, Jack Kerouac, had decided that he was going to eat a flower that he had been told would induce hallucinations, but instead induced projectile vomiting because he is highly allergic to pollen, begging the question, why the hell would you eat a flower? Right. Or there was the time in some back alley, back country, weird deli that I was trying to buy hummus, vegan, 1995, not readily available. And I was trying to quietly ask her, it's tahini, hummus, yeah. And she goes, cocks her head to the side and says, Betty, this girl wants to buy some homos. Do we sell those? Yeah, those were just blips compared to what was going to come. So finally, we make our way to Colorado. Scott had heard about this amazing hike that started in the San Juan National Forest and went up to the Continental Divide. So we abandoned the Greyhound bus, we hitchhiked our way into Durango, we go to the train depot, we get on this beautiful train that's steam-powered, it goes through winds through the forest, it's gorgeous. The forest is idyllic. Everybody's happy to be there. I finally feel like this trip is getting started. I'm like hanging out of the train like some sort of eager Labrador, and I'm so excited. So we get off at the trailhead and we start to hike up. First day is fine. We find a beautiful campsite. I let Scott pack the bag for the next day. We sleep, head off the next day. Now let me tell you, this is literally the most beautiful hike I've ever been on in my entire life. I mean, gorgeous. There are like 1,000-foot drops with this little tiny path that we're on, with waterfalls coming down. There's hummingbirds coming up to our face. There's switchbacks covered in wildflowers. There's snow-capped mountains in the middle of July. I mean, it's just breathtaking, literally. We kept having to stop because we had to reacclimate ourselves to the altitude. We're hiking this high. So finally, we make it to the top. And we did Jack Kerouac proud. We were communing with nature like Celtic fairies. We are banging on our chests. We are meditating. We're loving every minute. We spend like hours up there. And I am so happy until I look up and I look at the sun. And it's really, really, really close to the horizon. Now keep in mind, we're at 13 to 14,000 feet. If the sun is close to the horizon, that means it's gonna get dark really, really soon. So those 1,000-foot drops that I was like, a few minutes ago, are now dancing in my head as the death traps that they're gonna become in the pitch black. And those snow-capped mountains are reminding me that it is going to go from a lovely 70 degrees to almost freezing very, very, very soon. We basically have to get below the tree line or we're gonna die. And it's taken us hours to get up there. So I go over to Scott and interrupt him, meditating on the mountain. I'm wrapping him not so gently on the shoulder and pointing to the sun. And we start to move. I mean, we are booking, we're passing water back and forth, and we are discussing how we're going to survive. And it's during this discussion that I discover that Scott has failed to pack in our bag the following items: shelter, rope, matches, or a flashlight. Yeah, so we are going as fast as we possibly can, and by some grace of God and being fueled by my entire, just filled with rage, we managed to get below the tree line in 45 minutes, just as it's getting dark. So about 10 minutes after that, it is pitch black. We cannot see anything because it is a new moon in the Colorado Rockies. There is no natural light. I mean, there's nothing. Now, 200 feet this way is a river, so we can't go too far that way without knowing we're off base. But to the right is like miles and miles and miles of forest. I mean, like miles of death is this way. And we can't see because Eagle Ignoramus thought that pages of mindless dribble, sorry Jeff, was more important than the ability to see. Okay, so we keep going. I'm managing to keep us on the trail. I like, how does the trail feel compared to pine needles? I'm making our way, it's like hours of this, just I can't hear because the altitude has changed so dramatically. And I finally get to a point where I really can't tell where to go. Nothing looks familiar. It is just pitch black, and I'm like, oh, okay, we're gonna die. We can't see, we're starving. The trip was going very well. I'm having visions of like headlines that say, 2 college students die of stupidity in the Colorado Rockies. And I don't know what to do. And I look up, and I see this line of birch trees. And I don't know if I was just high on low blood sugar and hatred, but they are glowing. I swear to God, they're glowing. And at the bottom is the trail. I can see it. I don't know how, but I can see it. No natural light, keep in mind. So I get back on the trail, and another couple more hours of just blindly navigating. We finally get to where we think our campsite is. Scott goes off, he tries to find the campsite, he keeps falling and tripping, and I finally just say to him, just come back. You're gonna break your ankle, and I am in no food to carry your Boy Scout ass out of these woods right now, so sit down. So we sit down at the base of the street in literally freezing weather. We're all huddled together, and we're looking up at the stars, just waiting for the light to come and hoping it comes before a bear comes and eats us. Finally it does, the light, not the bear. And we look to our left, and there's our campsite, literally 200 feet away. That's how dark it was. So we crawl to the campsite, we stuff ourselves with like our body weight in granola bars and pass out for the day. That night, when I was sitting there in front of a warm fire and food, I really felt the deepest sense of gratitude I've ever felt in my entire life. Years later, I found out that the Druids, my ancestors, and probably Michael Moore's ancestors as well, call birch treers the way showers. They're supposed to guide you on your way. And when I looked up at those birch trees and I felt a sense of knowing where my path was, I felt so grateful. So I could classify this trip as a failure, but I don't, because it was then the first time that I actually felt how fragile life could be, especially in the hands of complete morons. But I also realized how much I need to be present in my life with gratitude and to pay attention when something or someone is trying to show me the right path. Oh yes, and to never trust an Eagle Scout. TSA is right. Pack your own bag. Thank you.